I'm a general partner and a founding partner at Lul Ventures. We're an early stage VC based in Tel Aviv. Our background is entrepreneurial. We've been fortunate enough to go through the journey twice, successfully building tech companies that became global category leaders and got acquired. Maybe we can touch on that a little bit more later. But just to answer your question, having been on both sides of the table in a way, at Lul, we really strive to add value to the founders we work with. Given our background, given our experience, given the fact we've been on both sides of the table, building, exiting, working for global corporates for 4 or 5 years after exiting to them, seeing how it works from the other side as executive in global public companies twice. I think that brings to the table a variety of, let's call it perspectives.
Avichay Nissenbaum, welcome to 20-Minute Leaders. I'm really, really excited to be spending the next 20 minutes with you, really diving into your journey as co-founder, general partner at Lul Ventures. You're an entrepreneur yourself. You've experienced the myriad of opportunities within the entrepreneurial journey, from entrepreneur, executive, manager of an important site, to all the way to investing and to sitting on boards of other entrepreneurs who've successfully built and sold their companies. And so I'm really excited to dive into the myriad of experiences and key learnings that you've had. So if we really start high level, Avichay, how do you consider yourself today? Well, what is really your main role?
Great. So first, Matthias, thanks for having me. I'm really excited to be here and share from my experience. Listen, to your question, today I'm a general partner and a founding partner at Lul Ventures. We're an early stage VC based in Tel Aviv. Our background is entrepreneurial. We've been fortunate enough to go through the journey twice, successfully building tech companies that became global category leaders and got acquired. Maybe we can touch on that a little bit more later. But just to answer your question, having been on both sides of the table in a way, at Lul, we really strive to add value to the founders we work with. Given our background, given our experience, given the fact we've been on both sides of the table, building, exiting, working for global corporates for 4 or 5 years after exiting to them, seeing how it works from the other side as executive in global public companies twice. I think that brings to the table a variety of, let's call it perspectives, that help founders identify and really navigate through this very challenging journey of entrepreneurship. It's very exciting. Everybody is thinking about being an entrepreneur as something that they aspire to, but clearly it's not an easy journey. It's a tough journey. It's very complex. And as mentors, and this is where we see ourselves as mentors that can bring to the table a lot of value to founders that are less experienced, young, and are eager to learn and succeed fast and accelerate fast.
Absolutely. And I think that, this notion of it's a challenging journey, I understood it. Myself now as an entrepreneur, as an investor, I've always understood it. I grew up in a house of entrepreneurs. Until you get to experience it yourself, you really get surprised, I think, by the complexities with which we're dealing with in the day-to-day that are just unique to every situation, and then somehow are also very similar. And so I can only imagine, what you bring to the table, but connect the dots for me from your experience. So as an entrepreneur and executive and now investor and board member, what are the ways in which you really interact with entrepreneurs that you enjoy most and you feel reap the most benefits to them in the complexities of the entrepreneurial journey?
Yeah, that's a great question. So of course, let's talk first on the technical aspects and technical touching points between us and the founders. Those are not necessarily the place where we bring the highest value, but we do have board meetings. Usually 3-4 times a year with every company we invest in. That is a more strategic discussion. But we tend to do, as far as our philosophy is value add, we have two other types of major engagement, and third one that is totally casual. So let's start with the easy one and the totally casual. We're always available on WhatsApp any time of the day to address any pressing questions. Okay, and that accessibility is very important in our view. Okay, the two additional, more structured processes. One is an intimate discussion. Each founder I'm working with has a a weekly or a bi-weekly slot on my calendar. Okay, that could be a coffee meeting, that could be a Zoom. Usually it's alternates between. It's a meeting where we sit around the table, we pull up our sleeves, we get a quick update. What are pressing issues? We discuss them. We look at data. Okay, data trends, graphs. Of pressing topics and key indicators for the business, but it's an open discussion. It could be anything that's on your mind. Okay, it could be a hiring issue, it could be a fundraising issue, it could be a strategic view on the business. That is where most of the value is generated, to be honest with you. Okay, it's very intimate, no strings attached. It's not formal like a board where you have to be formal with a lot of things and everything you say is kind of uh, this is like really, 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 we're on the same side of the table in a way. Okay.
And how do you feel how do can you dive a little bit deeper into how the informality of the relationship and the fact that you also are an entrepreneur yourself? You're both an entrepreneur within the VC world, but you've also founded and led companies. So what are the types of informalities that you exchange with entrepreneurs that you feel really drive value to them, either on the personal, emotional, mental, or tangible, experiential aspects?
Yeah. Yeah. So just to finish the third item, and I'll get back to that. And that is something we call value creation process, which is a bit more structured. Okay. So we have the WhatsApp, we have the board. These are the two extreme. WhatsApp, totally informal. The board, very formal. The biweekly or weekly meeting, which we're going to touch more into. And then we have something we call value creation program, which is more a quarterly discussion where we kind of elevate to 50,000 feet and look at where we've been, where we're going on many different facets of the business. And this is mainly focused on what assets do we need to bring to the table for our next fundraising. Okay, so we look very high level on things, on traction, unit economics, story, team, and many other things. Okay, so these are the processes that we as a fund operate, and this is part of our philosophy to have multiple views on things. Some are more intimate, some are more formal. Okay, let's go back to your question on the intimacy. Listen, the main point is the ability to listen. The main point is the ability to translate. Okay, translate. Let me give you a couple of anecdotes. Okay, I've been in, just not mentioning names specifically, but was a company I was involved with. That was working with a major American corporation. Silicon Valley time zone. Like CEO calls me like 11 p.m. Israel time. It's he just finished a meeting there. And he's telling me what happened in the meeting. Okay, I practically, highlighted to him that based on my experience, having been twice working for public U.S. public companies. As I said, I exited twice once to a French company traded in Nasdaq and once to AOL, America Online. I was able to explain to them that what they heard, was totally wrong to what the other party, actually could tell them, and navigated through not being able to tell them exactly what they wanted to hear. Essentially, they were trying to sell the company, and what they heard was basically it's not going to happen. And what I was able to translate to them was, these are the things we need to do to overcome to get to a point where this is going to be interesting for them. And in reality, we sold the company 6 months later to the same buyer. Okay, so I think there's a few things here that you have to put in place. One is ability to listen. Okay, Second, ability to relate. Listen, it's again, as I said, it's very challenging. Okay, and we need to have some humility in this discussion. Okay, it's about I understand your situation. It's about I understand why this is so challenging for you. Here are a few tips from stuff I've done in the past, either myself or based on my perspective from other companies I'm working with. Because, again, investors have perspective because they work with dozens of companies, whereas founders usually bet on their own company. So, I mean, that's a bit of a difference between the two, right? Um, a founder is living within a boundary of a company. We get to see what other things succeed or fail in other areas, which are quite similar many times. So we can advise you with. Plus, we have our own experience. So that's what we add to the table. We have perspective, we have historical perspective, we have our own perspective, we have our own experience, and we have portfolio perspective. Okay, so listening, being able to relate to your situation, being able to share with you different ways to handle the situation, being able to actually show you obstacle you are not seeing. Okay, it's like I will say this: I love working with founders that have very strong conviction, know what they want to do, but also relate to I might come and say, hey, here's a tree in the middle of the road. You're not seeing it. Okay, it's coming at you. Okay, now some people are very vain and they'll just avoid it and just hit the tree. I mean, the smartest ones will say, okay, wait a minute. I see what you're saying. Let's find together a way to go around this. Okay. And this is kind of the discussion we're having on a normal basis.
I love it. You touched on something that I think is really interesting, which is the question of relatedness. It feels like a lot of the added value that you would bring to the table, and any great VC for an early stage company, for that matter, is the advice that the fact that you have this big, wide viewpoint of the market today. You have your own experience, exactly what you're mentioning. You have the perspectives that people that are bound to just their own internal echo chamber, right? And the way that I like to think, my investors like to call to drink our own Kool-Aid. It's incredible perspective because effectively it feels like you're probably the most knowledgeable person on the company who also has the most incentive to help. But the way that you experience the company is within its borders, and you get to constantly see how it relates to the external world. How do you? But it goes back to the fact that the entrepreneur has to feel like you relate to them in a way that your advice and your inputs can then make sense, so that they would be willing to see the tree and want to engage in a conversation about the tree. If we now look at it from the perspective of founders and entrepreneurs, what are ways in which you think founders can assess when engaging with potential partners to go on this journey with potential VCs? How can they assess the notion of relatedness, of whether there's this alignment where this partnership will work on a personal basis? Because it feels like that's a really big part of being able to then open up and see the big world.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's what I tell founders a lot of, most of the time. By the way, my wife is also founder of a very successful company called Tipa Corp. They're doing compostable plastics, and so fortunately, I'm also on her board. She's asked me to join her board, which is kind of awkward in a way, but I think I'm able to also tell her through the years when she raised funds. These points about really connecting with the investor. Okay, and if it doesn't sit well, if the friction is there already in the initial discussions, as they say, like a gun or a knife that appears in the first act of the play will shoot at a certain point. So I think if it doesn't sit well and the relationship is not flowing and the trust is not there, just don't do it. I mean, I think in a way, it's such a long journey, and we're early stage investors. So typically, even most importantly, would be your earliest investors are the ones that matter most for you for the first half of the journey, let's call it. Um, and that sets the scene. Okay, it sets the scene on the legal terms of the deal. which, is it friendly or not? Is it founder friendly? Is it aggressive or not? That sets the scene to everybody else down the road. So, at Lul, we try to be as friendly as we can, not just in terms of relationship and how we build a relationship, but also on the legal structure of the deal, etc. Because that means that we are actually very aligned with the founders, even financially. Okay, because we're, on the cap tables, we are as close as it gets to the common shares, right, to the founders themselves. So the point is, it is a relationship, and life is short. We've very much focused on amazing founders that have amazing conviction on disrupting industries, etc. But we also want to enjoy the journey. We know it's a tough journey. We know we're going to have to work hard, but we want to work with people that we feel good about. Okay, like we say, life is short, and so why get into a relationship where things are not, that don't seem to be, call it, flowing? Okay, so I think it's a mutual thing. I mean, my advice to any founder is really, really understand, the people you're working with. If there's good vibe, go for it. If there isn't, move to the next investor. And at Lul, we actually give all founders, we talk to the list of all of our founders, and they can talk to them themselves. We don't tell them talk to these guys or this guy, so that there's no bias. Okay, and at the end of the day, this is so critical, because if you don't have a sounding board in this tough journey, it's just going to be tougher. That's all.
And it's tough anyhow. That's a common advice that I've been getting myself as an entrepreneur recently quite a lot is that there's so many hard things about this journey, and it's so difficult as is. Whatever any interaction you can have with your team, with your investors, with customers, choose the path of least resistance. In many cases, that'll be good advice, because it's hard enough as it is. You don't need to add an additional strain on the toughness of it. Avichai, to wrap things up, what is the biggest, really, I think the biggest lesson fundamentally about this journey of entrepreneurship that you've accumulated over the years that you take with you? If you're sitting with coffee with the average young entrepreneur going on their first journey, what does it come down to for you?
So, I think the bottom line is that we seek for people that are very visionary, like they see a clear vision where the world is heading. But we clearly seek for people that are very passionate as well in what they do. That we would feel that they have the tenacity, the conviction, and the resilience for the journey. Okay. We seek for people, by the way, this is not just about, you talked about the relationship earlier, right? Just pounding back on that. But this is not about just being a cheerleader on the side. You seek for people that are ready for the challenge and are ready to be challenged. Some of our meetings, we're challenging each other in a good way. Okay. If you're seeking for just as cheerleader, somebody's just going to sit down and say, you're great, great, great. I don't think that's the right thing for this relationship. So keep that in mind. I didn't want it to mean that we're a cheerleader. On the contrary, we're challenging, and founders like that. Challenging in a way that opens up new thinking processes is key. So we also seek for founders that are open to be challenged. Okay, that are ready to take a challenge and think about it together in a way of mentoring each other and challenging each other to resolve and get better and accelerate and move faster. Okay, so in a way, this is, you could say, this is like people that are open to feedback. In a way. Okay, but I think it's much more than that. It's a mutual discussion. A company is an organic entity. It has a life. The founders are the ones that are planting the DNA into this company and into this entity. And in order for it to execute well, it has to be very well synchronized, orchestrated, communicated, and driven forward. So we're there to try to help on that.
Avichai, thank you so much. This is such a great conversation. I can you can only imagine how lucky the entrepreneurs that get to work with you are, and not just you, but with Lul Ventures. And I've been very excitedly following Lul's investments and journey over the last several years, ever since I've gotten into this world myself. And I've even been to your roof several times, and so it's a highly recommended experience. And thank you very much for being here. Appreciate it.
You're welcome to join us again to our rooftop meetups. We do quite a lot of those. Some are specific and thematic. Some are just networking and connecting founders and investors. So, yeah, great conversation. Thank you again, Matthias, and have a great day.
Thank you so much.